It is Wednesday, May 28th, and the Dong Report and the Whiff Report, I got both today, are back in your lives. I'm Matt Modai, and I got a loaded show today. I have 3 home run picks for you guys, and I have 3 strikeout props for you guys as well. 6 picks total. Loaded slate on the MLB today. Of course, before I can give you those, we got to do a recap from yesterday, which was a really good day, actually, between the NBA and the WNBA, and then, of course, MLB as well. I had a really, really good day yesterday. That included both the Dong Report and the Whiff Report being profitable, which is rare. Normally, it's one or the other. Yesterday, I was able to be green on both home runs and my strikeout props. As for dongs, I got 1 dong to mash. Thank you to Juan Soto. The other 2 did not, but we were up yesterday, up 0.28 units. Very slightly profitable because the odds on Soto were a little bit juiced, but hey, we'll still take a profitable day. The Whiff Report was phenomenal. The best day I've had by far on the year for strikeouts. I got all 3 of mine to cash, one of them being a plus money banger. 3-0 plus 3.18 units on our whiffs yesterday. Just an incredible day, being profitable in both and then sweeping the board with our Whiff Report. On the entire season, things are still pretty rough with home runs. Specifically, we are down about 15 units on the season. We were up, or I guess it's still May. We are up in the month of May, so things are turning around, but turning around slightly and still not enough to make back everything that we lost in April. But hey, at least things are starting to turn around. And then for whiffs, thanks to yesterday's 3-0 day, we are profitable for the season, up a little bit over a unit on the Whiff Report. So we were red prior to that. Now we're green, which feels very, very nice. So if you are new to my channel, I would appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button. And then for this specific video, like the video, comment. Let me know the thoughts on my home run picks. Let me know if you have home run picks that you like. And then the last thing that I'll mention before I get to the bangers is if you're interested in having all of my plays sent to you, $5 a month, I do have a dub club where I send everything out. Gets you the same plays that I have on YouTube and Twitter that I give out for free. It just gets them sent to you early, and you don't have to worry about watching the YouTube videos or anything like that. So if you are interested, check out the dub club. But that is enough of that. Let's hope we can have another awesome, awesome day today with our 3 home run picks that we're going to start with. Starting in the Guardians versus Rockies game, I'm taking Jose Ramirez to hit a home run plus 320 odds at FanDuel. Ramirez has just been on an absolutely ridiculous home run binge. He's got 7 home runs in the last 2 weeks. And obviously, when you hit 7 home runs in a 2-week span, you're going to have pretty incredible home run stats. But his are amazing across the board. Like literally every possible stat that I look at, his are incredible. Normally there's like, yeah, this isn't ideal, but everything else is good. Not really for Jose Ramirez. Now, he did hit a home run yesterday, but he's got another incredible matchup today, both from a pitching matchup perspective and a weather perspective as well, that I'm comfortable going back to him today. For starters, this game is being played at Coors Field. Everything we know about Coors Field is that it's great for home runs, great for carry. In the pitching matchup, he's going up against Rockies pitcher Ty Blatch, who's not a good pitcher. Now, we're going to get into the pitching matchup, but to stick to Ramirez for a second, his stats are just incredible, and I want to just ride this heater for as long as I can. His ISO rate is up to 57.4%. That's an incredible number. For context, Fangraphs considers ISO rate anything 25% and above to be considered excellent. Now, ISO rate stands for isolated power. All you need to know is it measures power. Anything 25% and above is considered excellent. His is at 57.4%. Now, there are a couple guys going on ridiculous home run binges, so that number is the 3rd best in the MLB over the last 2 weeks, but individually, that number is insane. He's got a barrel rate of 15%. Barrel rate measures how often you make solid contact, how often you hit the barrel of the bat when you make contact. Anything 15% and above is considered excellent. So his is at 15%, just within the excellent category, still considered excellent. And then let's look at even more statistics, right? Even get deeper into these stats. Fly ball rate. How often are you hitting fly balls? 60%. That's the 4th highest in the MLB over the last 2 weeks. Pull rate. When you make contact, how often are you pulling it? Generally, the best home run hitters have a higher pull rate than average. His is at 60%. That's crazy. Generally, for fly ball and pull rate, anything 40% and above is acceptable. Anything 45% and above is great. Anything 50% and above is excellent. He's at 60% in both. And his pull rate of 60%, that's the 7th highest in the MLB. Now, yeah, someone that's hit 7 home runs over the last 2 weeks, of course they're going to have excellent home run numbers. But his literally across the board are phenomenal. And not only that, he's playing in Coors Field. Check. And let's look at this Rockies pitcher. Ty Blatch, again, Ramirez should be able to just mash him. Blatch is a left-handed pitcher. And Ramirez, he's got good advanced power numbers against righties and lefties. But they're better against lefties. His ISO rate against left-handed pitching is 31.3%. As we all know, that's in the excellent category. And against righties, it's all the way down to 21.9%. It's the difference between a great at the lower end of great power and above excellent. Difference between righties and lefties. Now, his fly ball rate is lower against left-handed pitching, but pull rate is higher, and his hard hit rate, most importantly, his hard hit rate is almost 20 percentage points higher against left-handed pitching than it is against right-handed pitching. He is hitting the ball much, much harder against lefties. It's at 47.2%, specifically of batted balls. That's a really, really high number. Unsurprisingly, Ballpark Pal lists this as a plus 10 advantage in favor of Ramirez, so I'm very confident that he's going to hit a home run tonight after hitting one yesterday. That's our first one. Next up, Blue Jays versus White Sox game. I'm taking Dalton Varsho to hit a home run, plus 420 odds at Bet Rivers. So one stat that I've been looking at a lot more recently as the weather is getting better is fly ball rate. The deeper we get into the summer, the better the ball is going to carry when it is hit in the air. And generally, in order to hit a home run, you need to hit a fly ball. So just wanted to get that out of the way because it's very pertinent to Dalton Varsho, who has literally the highest fly ball rate in the entire MLB over the last 2 weeks. His fly ball rate is at 66.7% over the last 2 weeks, meaning 2/3 of the time he's making contact. He's putting that bad boy in the air. He's hitting a fly ball. That's crazy. If you look at his average launch angle, it's going to make sense. His is at 26.4 degrees. For context, the sweet spot for launch angle specifically for home runs is between 25 and 35 degrees. This is basically telling you every time Dalton Varsho, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, makes contact, he's hitting the ball within the sweet spot of what we want for home runs. And that launch angle of 26.4 degrees, that's the 5th highest in the MLB. He's hit 3 home runs over the last 2 weeks. He's got an ISO rate of 26.7%. On the lower end, but still in the excellent category, so we're good to go there. Now, one stat that Varsho does not meet, which we normally look at, is barrel rate. He does not have a high barrel rate, I will admit, but all of his other metrics are so good. Fly ball rate, pull rate, ISO rate, and he's got an excellent, excellent matchup against White Sox pitcher Chris Flexen. Chris Flexen, horrible pitcher for the White Sox, but more importantly, he's a horrible right-handed pitcher who is even worse against left-handed hitting. Dalton Varsho is a left-handed hitter who is significantly better against right-handed pitching. So it's a match made in heaven for Doms. On the season, if you look at Dalton Varsho's ISO rate, it's up to 27.1% against right-handed pitching. And against left-handed pitching, it's all the way down to 13.2%. That's a massive difference. That's essentially a difference between someone that has excellent power numbers, excellent home run hitting numbers, versus down to 13.2%. That's below average. That's terrible. Massive difference. Unsurprisingly, if you look at his batted ball statistics between righties and lefties, his fly ball rate, his pull rate, his hard hit rate, all of them are higher against right-handed pitching. As I mentioned, he's hit 3 home runs over the last 2 weeks. All 3 have been against righties. And then you look at Chris Flexen, terrible against left-handed hitters, which, as I mentioned, Varsho is. In basically half the batters, so he's faced twice as many right-handed hitters as he has left-handed hitters. He's given up 5 of his 8 home runs to lefties. So in literally half the batters, he's given up more home runs to lefties. That's a crazy stat. An ungodly bad home run per 9 of 2.70. That's terrible. Against left-handed hitters, he allows a fly ball rate of 50%. That's bad. A pull rate of 41.1%. That's mediocrely still pretty bad. And his hard hit rate is 10 percentage points higher against left-handed batters. So match made in heaven for Varsho to hit a home run. Hopefully he does, coming through for us. And then our last pick, we're actually heading back to the Guardians versus Rockies game. And I'm taking Ryan McMahon to hit a home run, plus 550 odds at Caesars. So we're going back to this game. backing Ryan McMahon to mash one for us. Last year, you would have wanted to target Ryan McMahon against a right-handed pitcher. That's actually not been the case this season. And we're not in April anymore. We're at the end of May. It's a pretty decent sample size. His ISO rate against lefties is up to 22.7%. Now that's considered great, not excellent, but that still meets the threshold that we look for. And against right-handed pitching, it's down to 18.2%, so that is below the threshold. Now, I will admit, if you're looking at McMahon, his fly ball rate is lower than what we would like. So just to kind of go back to how crazy Jose Ramirez stats are, nothing for Ramirez is lower than what you'd like. For McMahon, the one concession that you have to make is his fly ball rate. And his fly ball rate is lower against lefties than righties. But his pull rate is higher and his hard hit rate is higher against left-handed pitching as well. Over the last 2 weeks, McMahon has hit 4 home runs, and 2 of them have come against left-handed pitching, And that's a smaller sample size, right? He's faced more right-handed pitchers than lefties, and he still hit half of his home runs against left-handed pitching. And it's a tiny sample size, so these numbers are always going to be a little bit wonky. But if you looked at his ISO rate in the last 2 weeks against left-handed pitching, it's up to 46.2%. And again, his fly ball rate is lower than what you would like. His pull rate against lefties over the last 2 weeks is an insanely high 63.6%. And his hard hit rate is also a really good, insanely high 45.5% on batted balls. Now, for Ryan McMahon, the reason why I'm willing to stomach a lower fly ball rate than what we typically look for is because he hits the ball with a lot of power. So guys that have a higher average exit velocity, you can afford a lower launch angle because obviously the harder the ball is hit, even with a lower launch angle, it can still go out of the ballpark. And that's what we're seeing with Ryan McMahon, right? His average exit velocity is 94 miles per hour. That's not quite averaging a hard hit, which is 95 and above. That's still pretty good. And that number of 94, that's the 11th highest in the MLB over the last 2 weeks. And then if you just look at the standard power splits that I look for, over the last 2 weeks, McMahon's ISO rate, 27.7%. That's excellent. His barrel rate is 13.5%. That's great, not excellent, but still meets the threshold. And then in terms of the matchup, he's going up against a pitcher that he should be able to hit. Logan Allen is on the mound for the Guardians, and he's got home run numbers that you want to target for home runs. He allows a barrel rate of 9.7%. That's the 11th highest barrel rate in the entire MLB. He allows a hard hit rate of 45.5%. That is the 5th highest hard hit rate in the MLB. And now all of this makes sense when you look at his average exit velocity when the hitters make contact. It's at 91 miles per hour. That's the 5th highest in the MLB. So Ryan McMahon is a hard-hitting batter going up against a pitcher that allows a lot of hard hits. Another match made in heaven there. And then if you look at Logan Allen, his fly ball rate and his pull rate are both higher against left-handed hitters. That bodes well for Ryan McMahon. Looking at Ballpark Pal here lists this as another plus 10 advantage in favor of the batter. McMahon's going to mash one for us. I love all 3 of these home run predictions. And that'll do it for the Dong Report specific part of the episode. All we need is one of these dudes to hit a home run, and we will at least be profitable for the day. But if we can get all 3 to hit a home run, we will be rich, and we will do a lovely, lovely job of hitting a nice dent into our losses on the year. So let's hope we can get all 3 of them to mash. And now as we transition to the strikeout props, 3-0 yesterday. Let's hope we can keep that going. Starting in the Astros versus Mariners game, I'm taking Justin Verlander over 6.5 strikeouts, -120 odds at FanDuel. Time to go back to the old reliable strategy of targeting strikeout props against the Mariners, who strike out like crazy. They are literally, on the entire season, the worst strikeout team in the entire MLB, meaning they have the highest strikeout rate. They strike out at the highest rate against right-handed pitching on the entire season. Their team strikeout rate is 28.7%. And if you isolate the last 2 weeks specifically, they're even worse. Granted, they're slightly worse, but they're still a worse number at a team strikeout rate of 28.8% against right-handed pitching over the last 2 weeks. That's the second highest strikeout rate over the last 2 weeks specifically. And that team strikeout rate, like the 28% number, that is considered awful by FanGraphs standards. FanGraphs considers anything 27.5% or worse to be considered awful, and that's the worst rating that they give. The Mariners are one of 5 teams that are in the awful category in terms of team strikeout rate over the last 2 weeks. And they're the only team that has a team strikeout rate considered awful on the entire season. Just a really bad strikeout team, meaning they strike out a lot. They have 5 dudes in their lineup who strike out over 30% of the time over the last 2 weeks. That's terrible. They actually have 2 guys that strike out over 40% over the last 2 weeks as well. That is really, really bad. Now, looking at Verlander, he's been a little hit or miss this season. He's only gone over this number in 3 of his 7 starts this year, but he has done it in 2 of his last 3, and he's coming off of a 9 strikeout start against the Mariners. Now, we're going to get into the Mariners. They're another strikeout team, but at least he's shown the ability to mow down a team that strikes out a ton. Of course, if you're looking at his strikeout numbers individually, they're not nearly as good as they once were. He's also 41, so that makes sense. But in this matchup against a terrible team that strikes out a ton, he should be able to get to 7 for us as our first play. Next up, Blue Jays versus White Sox game. So I'm taking the Blue Jays pitcher, Alec Manoah, over 5.5 strikeouts plus 100 odds at bet 365. Relying on 2 Blue Jays in this game, one to hit a home run, and then their pitcher to strike out 6 or more batters. So I mentioned previously that there are 5 teams with an awful strikeout rate over the last 2 weeks. As I'm sure you can guess, the White Sox are one of those 5 teams. Over the last 2 weeks, they've struck out 28.3% against right-handed pitching. Again, that's considered awful. That's the 4th worst number over the last 2 weeks as well. Now, the White Sox did have a good start yesterday against Gausman. Gausman did not go over his strikeout prop, but Gausman has had a really rough year, just not the year for Kevin Gausman. And the White Sox 2 starts heading in to that game last night against Kevin Gausman, they were terrible. Chris Bassett had 7 strikeouts. His over-under was 5.5. And it was really heavily juiced towards the over, meaning the over was plus odds. So I guess I should rephrase that. Chris Bassett struck out 7 batters in his last start against the White Sox. His over-under was 5.5. And the over was priced at like plus 146. So not only did he go over his number, but it was not the most likely outcome. And he still went over by 2 strikeouts. And then the start prior to that, Kyle Bradish of the Orioles, he struck out 11 batters, and his over-under was also 5.5. And the White Sox are a team where you can't look at the entire season and determine whether they're a strikeout team or not. You have to look at recent numbers. That's kind of what baseball is, right? It's a bunch of mini season packed into an entire season. So yeah, what happened in early April, late March, doesn't really matter. If you look at their entire season, they're just average in terms of strikeouts. But if you look at the last 2 weeks, they're terrible. And depending on their lineup, they have between 5 or 6 guys who strike out at an awful rate. Now, I say between 5 and 6 because it depends what they end up going with for their lineup. Between RotoWire and Props.cash, the two websites that I looked at for projected lineup, one of them has 5 projected strikeout guys. The other one has 6. Either way, 5 is good enough for us. 6 would obviously be great, but even that 5 number is good. And looking at Alec Manoah, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's got elite strikeout stuff, but he has gone over this 5.5 number in 3 of his 4 starts. He cashed it in the first 3, then he missed it last start. But the start he missed was, again, his last start against the Tigers, who have a bottom 10 strikeout rate over the last 2 weeks. And then the White Sox, not only do they strike out a ton, but they also have the worst WRC plus against right-handed pitching as well. So hopefully Manoah, even if he doesn't have elite strikeout stuff, can get deeper into the game, just giving us more opportunities to strike out 6 batters. That's our second play. Third up, final pick of the video, Athletics versus Rays game. I'm taking Ryan Pepiot, Pepe Le Pew, over 6.5 strikeouts, plus 105 odds at bet 365. I promised we would get to the Athletics, and here we are, taking Pepe Le Pew to strike out 7 or more Athletics, who are another one of the 5 teams with an awful strikeout rate over the last 2 weeks. On the season, the A's have the 2nd worst strikeout rate in the entire MLB, meaning they strike out the 2nd most. Team strikeout rate of 26.4% on the season. If you look at the last 2 weeks, that is all the way up to 28%. So they're much, much worse recently in terms of striking out. We had a strikeout prop yesterday against the Athletics, Zach Littell. He cashed it with relative ease. I'm going right back to targeting the Athletics once again. Now, similarly, it depends on their lineup, whether you go with Props.cash or whether you go with RotoWire. They have either 4 or 5 guys that strike out at an awful rate. It really just depends on Soderstrom if he ends up starting. Props.cash has him in the lineup. RotoWire does not, so we'll have to see there. 4 guys is the minimum that you look for. As long as you can get 4 strikeout guys, that's good. You'd prefer 5, but 4 is okay. That's either way plenty for Ryan Pepiot to mow down. And he had a good start to the year. He's admittedly been rough in his last 2 starts. He got dinged up. He only struck out 3 in each of those starts. He only pitched 44 and 46 pitches. He only threw 44 and 46 pitches in those 2 starts as well. But prior to that, so he's had 8 starts this year. In his first 6, he threw between 80 and 94 in all 6 of those starts. So hopefully the last 2 are just a blip and he gets back to form. Because when he's on, he's got pretty decent strikeout stuff, right? He's got a strikeout rate of 27.7%. That's the 14th best in the MLB. He's got a swinging strike rate of 12.3%. That's the 21st ranked swinging strikeout rate in the MLB. So yeah, not among the best, but definitely good, above average. And he's got a called strike plus whiff rate. So how often the players either swing or miss or don't swing and have it be a called strike. His is at 29.8%. That would be the 14th best in the MLB. So if he can get on track after 2 rough starts, I'm really confident he's going to have a really good strikeout start specifically, even if he gets hit up. Let's hope he strikes out 7 batters. And that's all we got. 3 strikeout props for you guys to lock in. Let's hope we can have a nice day today after an incredible day yesterday. Remember, like the video, comment, subscribe, check out the Dub Club if you're interested. I appreciate everybody for watching, and have a good one.